Hi, this is Brett Ingram, award-winning entrepreneur, and today I want to share with you starting versus scaling a business and the 7 different entrepreneurial skills that are needed for each. So a lot of times when we think about entrepreneurship, we sort of lump it all together, right, into one big ball of sort of skills or traits, things that we need to be able to do. And it tends to be a catch-all for any idea related to starting or growing or developing or scaling a business. But actually, the reality of it is quite different than that. They're very distinct skill sets in terms of the ability to take an idea and to take that idea and put it into action to make it into an actual business, and actually taking a business that's running, that's functioning, and be able to build that and scale that. And interestingly, and sort of ironically, I guess, some of the skills are almost in opposition to each other. Some of the very things that make people excellent at the startup phase of things are the very things that hold them back from the scaling phase. And, I know for me, the startup is always the thing I'm most excited about. It's the reason that as I started to build software, I didn't just build 1 or 2 big brands, even though that might have been in some ways a lot smarter. What I did instead was I got excited about an idea, I built it, and then I would get excited about something else and I would go build that too. And so I wasn't really optimizing a lot. But you can see when you start to really look at businesses and you look at businesses at different phases, that the skills that are required are actually very different. And so it depends on what phase that we're at. But the most important thing is that we understand them all from the get-go, because if we do that, then we're going to be able to figure out what things and what areas we're going to be good at and what areas we're going to need help. Because ultimately, all of us want to be able to build a successful business. And so at the end of the day, it comes down to understanding what skills are required for that and being able to either have those skills, cultivate those skills, or go out and find them somewhere in somebody else. And so starting versus scaling a business. Now, specifically what we're talking about when we say that is taking the idea from just an idea and actually building that into a functioning business. That's the startup phase, right? And then the scaling phase is taking a business that's already functioning and in general profitable, but it's at least functioning, and then being able to grow that to a multiple of where it is. So that's when we're talking about starting versus scaling, that's the sort of the 2 different ends of the spectrum. So entrepreneurs need a variety of skills to be able to navigate the different phases of a business. And so at each phase, there are specific abilities that are going to be required in order to address the unique challenges. So for starting a business, the number 1 skill, or one of the 7 skills that are required, is creativity and innovation, right? I mean, we've got to be able to have that in order to even come up with a unique business idea or a solution that stands out in the market. The only way, the thing that gives us an impetus, the thing that gives us sort of the inspiration to want to start a business in the first place, is that we either identify a problem and we figure out a solution to that problem, or we look at an idea of something and we say, you know what, I've got an idea for how we can make this better. So it's either a product or a service, or there's a problem. I was actually just reading a thing about Typeform, the online web forms company that's grown huge. And when they started out, they basically were just trying to make an online web form that was useful and fun for both the user and the recipient or the host of the form. The online forms had been sort of like, they were either boring or clunky, and so that's all they set out to do. And it was so successful that they decided, you know what, there's an opportunity here in the market. So identifying that kind of thing, where the opportunities are in the market, figuring out how we could adopt or adapt different products that are out there and make them better. That kind of creativity is super important in the startup phase. Another thing that's very important is the research and planning. So in addition to that kind of stuff in the beginning, we need to do a little bit of market research. We need to be able to understand competitive analysis. Just having an idea, this is a mistake I made when I started my computer business. I saw an opportunity, so I had that element of it, and the light bulb went off, and I saw a way that I could get parts for computers cheaper than the big boys could get them, and I could assemble them and ship them. And all of that stuff was great, but the market was super competitive. And I wasn't quite aware, I never did the competitive analysis to really understand I could run a successful business, but I didn't know or I didn't realize that it would be much more difficult to scale. And so doing competitive analysis is going to let us know, is there really an opportunity here or not? And then business planning, obviously, just sort of figuring out each of the steps that need to be taken to get things going. That's going to be really important in order to sort of vet the feasibility of the ideas that we've got and lay a foundation. Because let's be straightforward here. Just because we have an idea or just because we have an inspiration for something doesn't mean it's a great idea to run out and start a business for it. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's an idea, but it's an idea that if we ultimately start, we're going to have a lot of problems in order to make it actually work. The third skill that's required in sort of the startup phase, in the beginning phase, is at least some degree of financial literacy. Understanding the basic financial concepts like cash flow, budgeting. A lot of people mistakenly think that if you have a business and it's profitable, that means it's easy to keep it going. Well, it's true and it's not. Profit is great, but if the profit is delayed, if you're on sort of like a payment system, or you don't get paid for weeks or months after customers get what they need, you also need cash flow in order to be able to finance your own operations. So even though the money's coming in, you still need to have cash flow to be able to do it. And those are two totally different things. Budgeting, so we understanding sort of what things are going to cost, at least having a general idea. Financial forecasting, so we get an idea that the business can be financially sustainable, right? We need to be able to know that, okay, we might be able to get this off the ground, but then how fast is the money going to come in? How fast is it going to go out? And are we going to be able to keep up with that churn? Are we going to get it to a point where we're going to be able to survive? A fourth area of knowledge or information is legal knowledge. Now, again, we don't need to be legal scholars, but at the same time, we want some general idea of any legal requirements for starting our business, including like registrations, licenses, compliance with local laws, all that kind of stuff. We want to make sure that if there are any things that are out there that could prevent us from being able to grow or scale, or if there are any things that are going to limit us in terms of those kinds of things, we want to be aware of that up front so then we can make a decision of full knowledge. The toughest thing about starting a business is that we don't always know all of the things that we need to know. And sometimes those things are not knowable. We don't know what the economy is going to do. We don't know if COVID's going to strike. We don't know if there's going to be natural disasters or tornadoes or floods. And we don't know if that stuff's going to affect our business. So it's super important that we understand and that we have the ability to at least consider as much as we can so we get a full picture of it. Because what we don't want to do is look up later, realize that there was something that was a sort of a fatal flaw or an issue, and it's something that we could have known that we didn't. Things that are unforeseeable, there isn't much we can do about that, except for try to set ourselves up in a situation where we have enough of a buffer, we have enough of a cushion that we're going to be able to sustain and survive through those things, but we can't always foresee them, and that is totally understandable. The fifth element, and that's sort of related to this, is the ability for risk management, right? The ability to assess and manage risks associated with launching a new business. So no matter what the business is, whether we're doing, dog shampoos or whether we're doing, car washes or whether we're opening a hair salon or doing digital marketing or software or we're going to open a new ice cream shop, it doesn't really matter what the business is. There are going to be some inherent risks associated with it. And some of those risks are inherent to the business itself, the industry it's in, the location. Some of those things are going to be risks based on technology or based on legislation that's pending and things like that, if you were going to start a TikTok marketing business, now might not be the best time to do it. Because we know that if you're in the United States anyway, there is a very real possibility that in the next 9 months or so, TikTok will no longer be able to be used by anybody in the United States. So if that happens, that would be a big risk. Now, if you didn't know that and we started a business doing that and then that happens, so be it. Then we have to pivot and adjust. But knowing it now and not being aware, that would be the problem. We put our head down, we got this great idea, we create this TikTok marketing strategy, we got all this stuff, and then we look up and we find out, oh no, there's legislation that's already passed that could shut this whole platform down. And oh, by the way, it happened a month before I started my business, so I should have known about this. That's where we don't want to be, but we want to be able to assess risks, we want to be able to manage them, and we want to be able to realize, while there's always some element of risk, is it worth it? Like, is the risk low enough based on the return that we could get that it makes sense to continue anyway and to launch the business? The sixth thing we need, and this is often, and these aren't in any order, by the way, 6, actually some people put as number 1, is sales and marketing. On some level, we need some sort of skills in being able to create and implement initial marketing strategies so we can sell our products or services to customers. So whether or not we're doing a face-to-face, sort of negotiation, whether we're doing, telesales, whether we're doing direct mail, whether we have a digital, website and online services, whatever it is, we need some sort of way that we can reach out with our message, our products, and our services to the market, make sure the market is aware of them, and somehow be able to convince them to get from unknown to interested to customer. And so we have to have a process for how that's going to take place. Now that can evolve, that can adapt, and maybe initially we're the guinea pig. Maybe initially if it's one-on-one sales, we have to develop the script. We have to develop all the rebuttals. We have to do all that ourselves. But then we're going to need to have a process where we can bring people in and we can train them with the same stuff that we know so they can get to the same level that we are. And that's basically the idea. So we need a process for marketing and selling. Otherwise, how are we going to make any sales? The best product in the world, if there are no customers for it, isn't really going to help us. And the 7th thing that we're going to need, particularly in the startup phase, is resilience and problem solving. And this actually, for me, if I might put sales and marketing as number 1, I'd put this as number 2. Because every single business is sort of like an endless game of whack-a-mole, or hole plugging in the dam, where you stick the finger in and then the water sprouts out another place. It just is the way that it is with business. So it can feel like all the time we're in a problem-solving mode, but that is ultimately the path to growth. Is each time that we do something, some problems are going to result from that. And then we need to be able to solve those problems and continue to move on and grow. So, but in addition to problem-solving skills as sort of a physical trait or ability to do that, we have to have the resilience. We have to have the emotional fortitude to be able to handle setbacks and not get knocked out by that. There are going to be days in business where we are distraught. There are going to be days in business that are terrible, that we just want to go back to bed, that we wish we just got a corporate job and stuck with that. But that's all part of the package. So we've got to develop that inner strength so we can have the resilience to be able to go through that, handle the setbacks and challenges that are going to inevitably arise, especially in the early stages of business. There are problems at every stage, but they're different. So those are the 7 primary skills for starting a business and getting it off the ground. Now let's transition and let's look at, if we have a business that's up and running, how do we scale that business? How do we get it to a point where it grows to a level that we're excited about? So these are 7 different skills that we need for scaling a business. Some of them are overlap, and you'll see that. One is strategic thinking and planning, but this is a little bit different than the startup phase, because now what we're looking at is we have a going concern, we have a business. Now we need advanced skills in looking more long-term, not how do we get from here to survival in 6 months, but but how do we grow over the next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years in order to get to where we're going? Long-term goal setting, defining strategies that are going to help us achieve that business growth. And these are going to be more sophisticated because it isn't going to be about, I'm going to get on the phone with a client and close them. That might be our initial sales strategy. But we're going to need, to scale, we need something that is scalable. So we need a strategy that's going to be, much more limber and agile than just one-on-one sales for, as the CEO or whatever. The second skill we're going to need, and this is definitely unique to this phase, is leadership and management. This is where we're going to need the ability to lead a team. So as a startup phase, a lot of times we could do it nowadays with technology as a solopreneur. Maybe we have a couple of employees, but we don't need a lot. And certainly we can do it with outsourcers or maybe ourselves. But as we get bigger, we need the ability to lead a larger team. We have to be able to delegate, and we have to be able to foster a positive and productive company culture. So these are all very different skills that when we are alone in our business and doing things, we can just put our head down, we can ignore stuff, and it doesn't really matter. No one needs us, no one needs our help. When we have other people on the team, we have to make sure that A, we set an example. So even if we're having a down day, we got to pretend. We've got to be in a situation where we look like we're always in control. And we have to be there as a resource for other people. So they can come to us with problems. It's harder for us to go to them. I mean, we can, depending on what role they're in. But the fact of the matter is, leadership and management are going to be very important in terms of being able to scale. In terms of the third skill here is going to be advanced financial management. Now, again, this isn't something that we need to become an expert on. This might be something where as we start to scale and we have a little bit more capital, maybe we want to find someone who has this if we don't. But we need skills in managing more complex financial issues. So the budgeting becomes more complex. The budgets are larger. So we might need to start to secure some funding, which is a whole other skill set. And managing bigger budgets and optimizing financial performance. So again, the one thing that we find as we scale is any issues we have when we're small get sort of exacerbated and made bigger as we scale. They don't disappear. So we have to be really good about what we're doing in each of these phases and efficient and optimized. Otherwise, as we grow, those problems become even bigger as well. So that is going to be a critical skill. The fourth skill is business development, the ability to identify and seize opportunities for expansion. So this is different than just pure sales, because we're not talking one-on-one making retail sales. What we're talking about is business development from a strategic standpoint. What new markets can we go into? We're no longer focused on just, selling to our one little market. Now we're looking at how we can grow this, laterally and vertically, right? Are there other markets that we can enter? Maybe markets that are different niches or different industries. Maybe vertical integration where we can add another phase to our pipeline. Or maybe we go laterally where we start to expand out our product line. So new markets, new products, partnerships can be very valuable at this phase because we have enough reputation and we have enough history and stability in our business that we can actually foster these kinds of relationships and make them win-win with other companies. The fifth skill we're going to need is operational efficiency. As I just mentioned, as we get bigger, the problems that we have get exposed and get bigger. And so if we have inefficiencies, if we have waste, that stuff gets scaled as well. And so we start pouring lots of money down the drain that we need to be using in other areas of our business. So we need skills in optimizing and scaling up operations so we can handle the increased production or service delivery, but do it without compromising quality or customer satisfaction. That's a real challenge. It can be easy to satisfy customers when we're small because we can sort of bootstrap it. As we get bigger and bigger and bigger, it becomes more and more challenging to keep that sort of experience uniform and really high level. And so that is another skill. The sixth skill we're going to need is change management. The fact of the matter is, the one thing we know about life and about business is change is the only constant. No matter what we're doing, things are always changing. Things are always evolving. So we need to be prepared for that, and we need to be open to it. So we have the capability to manage change as the organization grows. Some of those changes will be based on the organization's growth itself. Some will be based on industry factors or economic factors, and every other thing under the sun, competitive factors too, technological factors. So all parts of the business have to be able to adapt appropriately. And the seventh thing is going to be data analysis and decision making. At this point, we're looking at more than just profit and loss and, hey, are we making enough to survive? Now we need to dig in a little bit deeper. And again, this is a skill set that we can cultivate, or we can find someone who's excellent at it. But we basically need proficiency in using data to inform our strategic decisions so we aren't flying by the seat of our pants. You can bootstrap and fly a little bit loose when you're a solopreneur and everything is on a small scale. When you get bigger, it has to be a lot more deliberate, it has to be a lot more strategic, and it has to be a lot more based in data. So we want to be able to monitor the effectiveness of our growth strategies. So as entrepreneurs transition from starting to scaling a business, you can see that we need to shift our focus from being hands-on in every detail and understanding how it all works to adopting a more strategic and leadership-oriented role. So it's not only developing new skills, but also building up our existing skills so we can manage a growing business effectively. The takeaway here is that we often lump entrepreneurship into one big ball of skills or traits, but the reality is it actually works in phases, and the skills required for each phase are different. It's important we recognize that and evaluate our own skills so we can determine what things that we can do very well and what things we might struggle in or we might need outside help to handle. By making this assessment, we can get a clear idea of a strategy for getting started and then moving forward through growth and scaling.